finger vibrato versus arm vibrato. Vibrato is used in all sorts of ways. It's to help maybe create more emotion in a musical piece, is maybe to enhance the volume and enhance the resonance of your violin. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the two different types of vibrato that you can use. You can use either a finger vibrato, and we'll also talk about using an arm vibrato. What are some of the pros and cons? If you're meeting for the first time, my name is Eric. I'm a violinist. I do a lot of violin tutorials and violin content on the channel. I encourage you to sign up for my newsletter to get up to date to new and upcoming videos. That way you can be a part of the community and also collaborate ideas with other violinists on this YouTube channel. Never forget the purpose of vibrato. It's to help express a mood. It's to help amplify our sound, to get more resonance out of our instrument. You know, if you're vibrating just to vibrate, it really doesn't make sense for you to do it. You have to have a compelling reason as to why you're doing a vibrato a certain way. If you're doing a narrow vibrato, if you're doing a wider vibrato, you kind of have to have a reason for what you're doing. Using vibrato and doing vibrato is actually a kind of a very long learning curve if you don't know how to approach it correctly. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you the pros and cons. So let's start with the finger vibrato, because finger vibrato to me is something that I've been relying on lately. You know, back in college, I've relied a little bit more on arm vibrato to get that big oscillation in the sound, but I've been gravitating towards a more narrow vibrato. Not too narrow, but just narrow enough to not make it sound so wobbly. Let's talk about the mechanics of a finger vibrato. It's not like arm vibrato where you are using the entire arm, but you're just moving your finger ever so slightly. So it's just a little bit. It's this joint over here. That is where the magic happens. That is where the vibrato happens. Now, too wide of a vibrato, I'm going to make sure I focus back in here. Too big of a motion of a vibrato, and it's going to sound too wide. It's going to sound like a different kind of pitch. So if let's say if I play a first finger and I do a vibrato, finger vibrato, and if I do it too wide, it's a very different sound. So for me lately, I've been gravitating towards finger vibrato because I have a bit more control over it. So I want to just show you from this angle here. My arm is moving, but the engine of the movement does not come from the wrist. It comes from the finger. That is where that magic happens. And it's going here, not this way. And also, if I do an arm vibrato, you notice that my entire violin shakes. And that could also affect the sound and the contact point with my bow. So I want to be careful when I approach arm vibrato, because if I approach arm vibrato, I have to understand that the technique is slightly different and the way I approach vibrating the note is different. And for finger vibrato, this goes for all fingers: the first finger, the second finger, and the third finger. The fourth finger is kind of an anomaly because of the length of the pinky is not as long as the other fingers, but I want to reframe the conversation, and I want you to think about the pinky as a longer finger, because if you really think about it, the finger does not end at the knuckle here. It actually goes down to the wrist. So this pinky actually goes down here. So if you think about activating the pinky from the joint and, you know, maintaining the motion with the back of the hand, you're actually going to find more success in a more consistent vibrato. I oftentimes see students doing this, which is not an ideal way to learn vibrato, but at least you have the basic mechanics of starting from the joint here and going down to the wrist. Now, how should you practice vibrato? I would practice vibrato with a metronome. I would go very slowly, maybe 50 beats a minute, maybe 60 beats per minute, and I would just go really slowly. And you'll find that you'll get that like that ambulance Doppler effect kind of sound, and it might make your animals and your pets at home crazy, or it may make your siblings go crazy, but this is the truest way to get a reliable vibrato. For instance, if I'm playing a slower piece, then I could use slower vibrato, and practicing with a metronome will help me achieve that goal because my muscles are trained for that. My brain is really connecting all the pieces to the puzzle when I'm playing a slow vibrato, and then when I speed up, for instance, I can do a fast vibrato. I can do maybe same motion but a little slower. If I want to have the oscillation wider with the vibrato, I recommend relaxing all the other fingers. If your fingers are stiff, then the sound is going to be stiff. But if I relax the other fingers, it's kind of like a boomerang. You know, when you do the vibrato backwards, when you do go a half step down, which is, you know, that's the best way to practice vibrato. When you go down and you want to kind of boomerang back, and that's the best way to go about that. In terms of arm vibrato, a little bit of a different technique. Not that it's a bad thing. There are many violinists in the professional circuit that do arm vibrato. The vibrato with the arm still requires you to have a very loose joint in the finger. It's just the entire motion is not stopped at the finger. It's going down to the wrist and the arm. So if I'm gonna do an arm vibrato, if I'm playing something more romantic that requires a little bit more expression, then I would use an arm vibrato, like Brahms or Schumann. If I'm playing maybe First Violin Sonata by Brahms, you know, then I can really get the beautiful, meaty kind of sound out of my violin if I use a little bit more arm vibrato. On the contrary, you could also use finger vibrato for this exact same passage, depending on the mood and the style that you want to depict in your performance. So if I want to do finger vibrato, not that it's a bad way to play it, but it's just a different style of playing. And I want to hear your comments down below. Do you use finger vibrato? Do you use arm vibrato? Let me know in the comment section down below. Which one is easier for you? Which one is more tough? Never forget the purpose of vibrato. It's to help express a mood. It's to help amplify our sound, to get more resonance out of our instrument. You know, if you're vibrating just to vibrate, it really doesn't make sense for you to do it. You have to have a compelling reason as to why you're doing a vibrato a certain way. If you're doing a narrow vibrato, if you're doing a wider vibrato, you kind of have to have a reason for what you're doing. I hope this video was helpful for you when it comes to finger vibrato versus arm vibrato. If you want to practice vibrato, I have a great video up next for you to take a look at, and you can practice vibrato with me in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe so that way you get more videos on the channel if you're not a subscriber already. Link is right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.